The day I lost my company started like any other, with the San Francisco fog rolling over the hills and into the bay. I was Alexandra Chen, CEO of Nova Technologies, a company I'd built from nothing into a $500 million enterprise. But family secrets have a way of destroying everything you've built, and mine was about to come crashing down around me. I stood in my office on the 40th floor, watching the morning light pierce through the fog, when my assistant buzzed me. "Ms. Chen, your father and brother are here. They say it's urgent." A knot formed in my stomach. Dad and Marcus never visited unannounced. Something was wrong. "Send them in, Sarah," I said, straightening my blazer. The glass door swung open, and there they stood. Dad in his immaculate Italian suit, Marcus wearing that smirk I'd grown to hate over the years. "Alexa, we need to talk," Dad said, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he used throughout my childhood. He didn't wait for an invitation before settling into one of the leather chairs facing my desk. Marcus remained standing, hands in his pockets, examining my office like he was already measuring it for new curtains. "What's this about?" I asked, remaining behind my desk. Experience had taught me to keep barriers between myself and family, especially when they showed up unexpected. Marcus pulled out his phone, tapped it a few times, and slid it across my desk. "Remember this?" My blood ran cold. On the screen was an article from 15 years ago, buried so deep I thought it would never surface. The headline read, "Tech Prodigy Expelled from Stanford, Plagiarism Scandal Rocks Campus." "Where did you get this?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Does it matter?" Marcus's smirk widened. "What matters is what happens when the board sees it, when your investors see it, when everyone realizes that the great Alexandra Chen, the self-made tech genius, is nothing but a fraud." I gripped the edge of my desk, knuckles white. That was 15 years ago. I was young, desperate. "Save it," Dad cut in. "We're not here to judge. We're here to help you, Princess." Princess. That nickname that once meant love now dripped with manipulation. I looked between them, these men who shared my blood but had never shared my dreams. "What do you want?" Marcus pulled out a folder and placed it next to his phone. "Simple. Sign over controlling interest in Nova Technologies to us. We'll keep your secret, and you can stay on as CTO. It's what you're better suited for anyway. The technical stuff. Leave the real business to us." The real business. As if building a $500 million company from scratch wasn't real enough. As if the countless nights I'd spent coding, the years of sacrifice, the innovations I created meant nothing. And if I refuse? Dad leaned forward, his expression a mixture of pity and threat. "Then tomorrow morning, every tech blog from here to Singapore will have that article. Your board will have it. Your partners will have it. Everyone will know that Nova's revolutionary first product, the one that launched your career, it wasn't entirely yours, was it?" I felt the walls closing in. They had me, and they knew it. That mistake, that desperate act of a broke, struggling student, would destroy everything I'd built. Not because it defined who I was, but because in the tech world, reputation was everything. Trust was everything. "You have until tomorrow morning," Marcus said, standing. "Sign the papers or watch everything you've built crumble. Your choice, sis." They left me there, alone in my office with the fog now completely obscuring the view. I picked up the article, my hands trembling. The truth was more complicated than those headlines suggested. Yes, I'd used someone else's code in my final project. Yes, I'd been caught and expelled. But what the article didn't show was how that moment had changed me, how it had driven me to be better, to create something truly my own. Nova Technologies wasn't built on stolen code or borrowed ideas. Every line of our software, every patent, every innovation, I created them all, determined to prove I could succeed honestly. And now, 15 years of redemption would be erased by one teenage mistake. I spent the next hours and days reviewing my options with my lawyers. The verdict was unanimous. If this got out, Nova would tank. Our stock would plummet. The board would have no choice but to remove me. Everything I'd built would be tainted. At midnight, I was still in my office, staring at the papers Marcus had left. Transfer of controlling interest. My company, my life's work, signed away because of one mistake made by a desperate 19-year-old. I thought about my team, the brilliant engineers who'd followed me, believed in me, the customers who trusted us. The young girls who saw me as a role model in the male-dominated tech world. All of it would be destroyed if this got out. With tears blurring my vision, I signed the papers. The next morning, I arrived early to clear out my personal items before the official announcement. But as I stepped off the elevator, Sarah was waiting for me, her face flushed with excitement. "Ms. Chen, thank God you're here. Google's CEO has been trying to reach you since dawn. They want to buy Nova. They're offering $3 billion. The board is already gathering for an emergency meeting." I stood there frozen as the implications washed over me. $3 billion. 6 times what the company was currently worth. The papers I'd signed the night before still sat in my bag, undelivered. My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "On our way up. Have those papers ready." A smile spread across my face as I heard the elevator ding behind me. Sometimes timing is everything. And sometimes karma has perfect timing indeed. This was just the beginning of a war they never saw coming. The elevator doors opened and I turned to face my father and brother, their triumphant expressions freezing as they saw my smile. Behind them, our entire board of directors was filing out of the second elevator, led by our chairman, Richard Thompson. "Perfect timing," I said, my voice steady. We were just about to call an emergency board meeting. Marcus stepped forward, the signed papers clutched in his hand. "Actually, we have something to announce first." "Indeed we do," I cut him off, turning to address the board. "Ladies and gentlemen, this morning Google has made an offer to acquire Nova Technologies for $3 billion in cash and stock." The corridor erupted in excited murmurs. I watched the color drain from my father's face as he realized what this meant. The papers in Marcus's hand, the ones transferring control of a $500 million company, were now worthless. Because in about 10 minutes, that company would be worth 6 times as much. "This is irregular," Dad tried to interject. "There are some ownership changes that need to be addressed first." "What ownership changes?" Richard asked, his eyes sharp. He'd been in the business long enough to smell something off. I smiled sweetly at my father. "Yes, Dad, what ownership changes? Surely you're not referring to the papers Marcus is holding, the ones you tried to blackmail me into signing last night?" The board members' heads swiveled between us like they were watching a tennis match. Marcus stepped forward, his face red. "You signed them. The company is ours." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "I have a recording here from last night that the board might find interesting. It details exactly how you tried to extort control of a $500 million company through blackmail. Should I play it?" Marcus lunged for my phone, but 2 of our security guards, whom I quietly called up earlier, stepped forward. Dad grabbed his arm, finally realizing just how badly their plan had backfired. "The boardroom is ready," I announced. "Shall we discuss Google's offer?" "Oh, and Dad, Marcus, since you're not board members or executives, you'll need to wait outside." The next 2 hours were a blur of excitement and negotiations. Google's offer was real. They'd been watching Nova's innovations in AI technology for months. Our stock price would triple instantly upon announcement. The deal would make me and every major shareholder incredibly wealthy, but I wasn't done yet. As the board filed out after voting unanimously to accept the offer, I found Marcus and Dad still waiting in the reception area. They looked defeated, but I knew better than to underestimate them again. "You can't do this," Marcus sputtered. "We're family." "Funny, you didn't seem to care about family last night when you were threatening to destroy me." I sat down across from them. "But let's talk about family. Let's talk about what really happened 15 years ago at Stanford." Dad's head snapped up. Marcus went pale. "You see, I did some digging after your visit last night. Called in some favors, had some very interesting conversations with people from my Stanford days. And you know what I discovered?" I pulled out another folder. The original code that I supposedly plagiarized, it was actually stolen from me. By you, Marcus. The truth had taken all night to uncover, but it had been worth every second. Marcus had been struggling in his own CS courses at Stanford. He'd stolen my project code during a holiday visit, submitted it as his own at his university, when his professor had recognized the code because he collaborated with my Stanford professor. Marcus had planted evidence making it look like I had stolen it from him. "You let me get expelled," I said, my voice trembling with 15 years of suppressed rage. "You let me believe I'd ruined my own life. And Dad?" I turned to our father. "You knew. You knew all along, but you protected him because he was your favorite. Your son. Dad couldn't meet my eyes. Marcus started to speak, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. That article you threatened me with. It's about to be updated with the true story. I've already spoken to 3 major tech publications. They're very interested in the story of how the plagiarist built a multi-billion-dollar company, while the real cheat. I smiled at Marcus. Well, how many startups have you failed at now? 5? You can't prove any of this, Marcus whispered, but we both knew he was wrong. Actually, I can. Your old professor kept all the evidence. He's been waiting 15 years for someone to ask the right questions. I stood up. So here's what's going to happen. You're both going to leave my company. You're going to leave San Francisco. If anyone asks, you'll say you're proud of your daughter/sister's success. And if you ever try to come after me or Nova again. I let the threat hang in the air. They got the message. As security escorted them out, I felt no satisfaction, no joy in my revenge. Just a quiet peace. The peace of finally being free from a lie that had haunted me for 15 years. The next few months were a whirlwind. The Google acquisition made headlines worldwide. The story of my plagiarism did come out, but as a vindication, not a scandal. Messages poured in from young women in tech, telling me how my story inspired them to keep fighting in a male-dominated industry. I stayed on as CEO of Nova, now a subsidiary of Google, with full autonomy to continue our innovations. Our AI technology expanded, revolutionizing industries from healthcare to environmental protection. The 19-year-old girl who'd been expelled from Stanford had indeed changed the world, just not in the way anyone had expected. Marcus left tech entirely. Last I heard, he was trying to start a restaurant in Austin. Dad retired to Florida, occasionally sending apologetic emails that I never respond to. Mom, who had divorced him years ago, finally learned the whole story, and we grew closer than ever. During the acquisition celebration, Richard, our board chairman, asked me if I regretted not exposing Marcus's deception 15 years ago. I thought about it for a moment before responding. If I had, I said, I might never have worked as hard as I did to prove myself. Sometimes our greatest achievements come from our deepest wounds. I keep the original Stanford expulsion letter framed in my office now. Not as a reminder of betrayal, but as proof that our lowest moments don't define us. Our response to them does. Last week, I launched a scholarship program for young women in tech who face setbacks. We called it the Phoenix Fund, for rising from the ashes of failure to soar higher than ever before. The first recipient? A brilliant young coder who'd been accused of cheating by a jealous classmate. When I told her my story, she cried and hugged me. How did you survive it? She asked. I smiled, thinking of that foggy San Francisco morning when my father and brother thought they had destroyed me, only to make me stronger than ever. By remembering that success isn't just about coding or business, I told her. It's about knowing who you are and standing your ground, even when the people who should support you try to tear you down. The fog was rolling in again as I left the office that evening, but this time I welcomed it. Sometimes you need the fog to clear to see what's really important. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't about destroying others. It's about building something so magnificent that their attempts to destroy you become nothing but a footnote in your success story. As I got into my car, my phone buzzed with a message. Another tech company wanted to collaborate on an AI project. I smiled, thinking of how far I'd come from that scared 19-year-old who thought her life was over. The truth is, it was just beginning.